The sky over the frontier world of Kala burned with the colors of evening. Orange and red streaked across the horizon as the twin suns sank slowly behind jagged mountains. The settlers of Windrest, a small colony at the edge of the wild plains, worked hurriedly to finish their day's tasks. The wind carried the sharp scent of dry grass and the faint tang of iron from the nearby river. Every sound seemed louder in the quiet of dusk, and every shadow seemed to move on its own. Ryan, a young scout with sharp eyes and quick feet, walked along the perimeter of the settlement. His boots pressed into the soft, reddish soil as he scanned the horizon. He had grown up on this world, running across the plains and climbing the hills, learning every corner of the land. But even with all his experience, he felt a chill in the evening air that had nothing to do with the temperature. The settlers whispered about a creature that moved through the night, a predator unlike any they had seen. They called it the Dread Fang. It had been weeks since the first sighting. Crops had been destroyed, livestock torn apart, and more than one settler had gone missing in the dark. Stories spread quickly, and fear grew faster than the grass on the plains. Some said the Dread Fang was as large as a horse with teeth sharp as knives. Others claimed it had glowing eyes and could disappear into shadows. No one had seen it up close and lived to tell the tale. Ryan stopped at the edge of the wooden fence that surrounded the small cluster of homes. Beyond it, the plain stretched wide, dotted with thorny bushes and scattered stones. The wind whispered through the dry grass, and for a moment, everything seemed calm. Then a sound cut through the silence, a low growl that rolled across the plain like distant thunder. Ryan stiffened. His heart beat faster. The growl was familiar now, one he had learned to recognize. It was the Dread Fang. He turned quickly and ran toward the center of the settlement, calling for the others. Everyone inside. Lock the doors. Ryan shouted. His voice carried across the small village. Men, women, and children hurried to their homes. Windows were bolted, doors were barred, and lanterns were lit inside each house. Families huddled together, holding each other tightly. From the shadows beyond the fence, the Dread Fang moved. Its massive body was low to the ground, muscles rippling beneath dark, almost invisible fur. Its glowing amber eyes scanned the settlement, and it sniffed the air. The creature moved with silent grace, each step careful and precise. It was hunting. Ryan crouched behind a stack of crates near the main storage shed, his hands gripping the handle of a makeshift spear. He could see the Dread Fang now more clearly. Its jaws opened slightly, revealing sharp teeth, and its long tail lashed behind it. He swallowed hard, feeling fear rise in his chest. Fear that was quickly joined by determination. He knew the people of Windrest could not survive if the Dread Fang returned night after night. They had to find a way to fight it. But first, they needed to survive tonight. The Dread Fang lunged at the first livestock pen, crushing the wooden fence with ease. Cows and goats ran in terror, but the creature was faster. It struck with deadly precision, taking down one animal after another. Ryan felt a pang of anger and sorrow. These animals were the settlers' lifeline. Without them, many would starve. He glanced toward the other settlers. Many of them were crying quietly, clutching their children. Some tried to grab farming tools and defend their homes, but the Dread Fang was too fast. One man swung a heavy hammer and missed as the creature darted past him. Ryan knew he had to act. He could not let the Dread Fang destroy everything they had worked for. Slowly, carefully, he circled behind the creature, staying low to the ground. He had studied its movements for days, memorizing every pause, every shift in its weight. The Dread Fang was powerful, but it had habits. Patterns that could be used. He raised his spear and waited. The creature's attention was fixed on the next pen, unaware of Ryan's presence. When it moved, Ryan threw the spear with all his strength. It hit the Dread Fang in the shoulder. The beast let out a deafening roar, shaking the ground beneath Ryan's feet. The Dread Fang spun, eyes glowing brighter, and for a moment, Ryan thought it would charge him. But then it paused, sniffed the spear, and turned back toward the livestock. It had felt the pain, but it was not defeated. Ryan realized something important: this creature was clever. It was not just a mindless predator. It could think, plan, and adapt. He ran toward the settlement, shouting instructions. "Bring fire. Bring the lamps. We need light everywhere." Settlers scrambled, carrying torches and lanterns, forming a ring of flames around the homes. The Dreadfang growled, hesitant now. Fire was dangerous to it. It circled, testing the barrier, but each time it tried to approach, the flames forced it back. Night deepened, and the Dreadfang retreated into the shadows, disappearing as silently as it had arrived. The settlers were shaken, but alive. Ryan lowered his spear, breathing heavily, sweat and dust covering his face. He looked around at the village and saw fear in every eye. But he also saw hope. They had survived. They had faced the terror and lived. He walked to the center of the settlement, where the council of elders waited. They were older, wiser, but even their faces showed worry. "We cannot live like this forever," one elder said, her voice trembling. "It will return, and next time, it may succeed." Ryan nodded. "We cannot run. We cannot hide. We need to learn how to fight it. If we act together, if we plan carefully, we can face this beast. We have to try." The elder looked at him, doubt and curiosity in her eyes. "You are young, Ryan. But perhaps you are right. If we do not act, nothing will survive. We must prepare. Tomorrow, we gather a hunting party." Ryan's heart swelled. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Humanity had always faced dangers, and they had always found ways to survive. The Dreadfang was strong, clever, and terrifying. But humans had courage, determination, and the ability to think beyond fear. As the night settled over Windrest, Ryan walked along the fence, looking into the dark plains. The stars twinkled above, and the twin moons rose, casting a silver glow across the land. Somewhere out there, the Dreadfang waited. But so did humanity. The first hunt had not yet begun, but Ryan felt certain of one thing: no matter how fierce the terror, humans would not bow. They would face it, and they would endure. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying a promise. A promise that courage would shine brighter than fear, and that even the darkest night could be met with light. Ryan clenched his fists, feeling the weight of responsibility and hope. Tomorrow, the hunt would begin. And humanity would show that even against the fiercest terror, they could survive, adapt, and fight back. The next morning, the twin suns rose slowly over the settlement of Windrest. Their light painted the plains in shades of gold and red. Birds called from the scattered trees, and a faint breeze stirred the dry grass. The village looked peaceful, but the memory of the Dreadfang's attack the night before lingered in every mind. Ryan walked through the main square, his boots crunching against the reddish soil. Children peeked from behind their parents, and adults whispered quietly as they went about their chores. Some tried to repair the broken fences, while others tended to frightened livestock. The entire settlement felt tense, like a quiet before another storm. At the center of the village, the council gathered under the largest tent. The elders were seated on simple wooden benches, their faces drawn with worry. Myra, the eldest, spoke first. "We cannot continue like this. Each night, the Dreadfang grows bolder. Soon, it will take more than our animals. Soon, it will come for our people." Another elder, a man named Torin, shook his head. "We are not soldiers. We are farmers, builders, and healers. We are not equipped to face a beast like this. Perhaps we should leave Windrest and find safety elsewhere." Ryan stepped forward, his chest straight and eyes clear. "Running will not stop it. The Dreadfang does not care where we go. It will follow, and we will have nothing left. We have to fight. We have to face it, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who comes after us. Myra studied Ryan, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. You are young, Ryan, but your courage is strong. Tell me, what do you propose? How can farmers and builders fight a beast that outmatches us in strength and speed? Ryan took a deep breath. We do not have to match it in strength. We have intelligence, tools, and teamwork. We can study it, learn its habits, and find its weaknesses. We can prepare traps, use fire, and work together to turn its strength against it. It will be dangerous, but if we act wisely, we can survive. A silence followed. The wind rustled the tent's edges, carrying the faint smell of smoke from the lanterns that had burned through the night. The elders exchanged uncertain glances. No one wanted to face such danger, but the truth of Ryan's words could not be ignored. Torin finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. Very well. If we are to stay, we must plan carefully. We will form a hunting party. Volunteers will be chosen, and each will have a role. We must study the Dreadfang and strike together. No one fights alone. Ryan nodded, feeling both excitement and fear. The first step had been taken. Now, they had to prepare. The council spent the morning making lists. Farmers with experience in the plains would help track the creature. Builders and craftsmen would create weapons and traps. Healers would be on standby to help anyone injured. Everyone had a part to play. Ryan, Myra, and Torin would lead the hunting party, ensuring coordination and strategy. By midday, the settlement buzzed with activity. People gathered tools, sharpened spears, repaired fences, and collected oil for torches. Children were kept close to adults, taught to stay out of dangerous areas, and to alert someone if they heard unusual sounds. Ryan walked to the edge of the plains to scout. He crouched behind a cluster of stones and watched for any sign of the Dreadfang. The creature had disappeared after last night's attack, leaving only broken fences and frightened animals behind. The plains were silent now, but Ryan knew the silence was temporary. He remembered the patterns he had noticed. The Dreadfang struck quickly, targeting weak points in fences and areas where livestock gathered. It avoided fire and seemed cautious when confronted with light. It was clever, but it was not invincible. Humans had survived worse, and Ryan was determined to prove that courage could match strength. Later, he returned to the village and met with the other volunteers. Tomasz, a strong and quiet farmer, stood by the storage shed. He had lost several cows to the Dreadfang and held a deep anger that fueled his determination. Lyra, the healer, was gathering medical supplies, her hands moving quickly and carefully. She had seen the fear in the settlers' eyes and knew that hope could be just as powerful as any weapon. Bren, the engineer, was busy at a workbench, shaping metal into sharp points and assembling small mechanisms. His mind worked in patterns, thinking several steps ahead. Ryan addressed them. We are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for every family in Windrest, for every person who depends on this settlement. We will need to move carefully, watch each other's backs, and never act alone. This is not just a hunt. This is survival. The team listened quietly, absorbing his words. Tomasz nodded, gripping a heavy spear. Lyra held her satchel of supplies tighter, her jaw set. Bran wiped sweat from his brow and gave a small, confident smile. They were not soldiers, but they had determination and courage. As evening approached, the village prepared for the night again. Fires were lit along the fences, torches were placed in watchtowers, and guards took positions to alert the settlement at the first sign of danger. Ryan patrolled the perimeter, checking the traps and studying the land. The plains stretched endlessly before him, a mixture of beauty and threat. Suddenly, a shadow moved near the distant trees. Ryan froze, squinting against the fading light. The Dread Fang was out there, watching. It had not forgotten Wind Rest, and it was testing the humans. Ryan felt a mix of fear and determination. This was the first real challenge, the beginning of the hunt. He returned to the council tent. It is out there, watching. Tonight, we must be ready. Everyone must stay alert. We cannot underestimate it again. Myra placed a hand on his shoulder. You are right, Ryan. You have shown courage beyond your years. Let us hope it inspires the others. Humans have survived much, and with careful planning, we may yet survive this as well. Night fell over Wind Rest, and the fires along the fences cast flickering shadows across the plains. The Dread Fang moved silently among the distant trees, its eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. The settlers huddled near the warmth of their homes, listening to every sound, waiting for the first sign of danger. Ryan stood on the watchtower, spear in hand, scanning the horizon. He knew the first night of the hunt would test them all. But he also knew that humans had a gift that no predator could match: courage, determination, and the ability to think beyond fear. The plains were quiet, but the silence was full of tension. Somewhere out there, the Dread Fang waited. And somewhere here, the first hunters were ready to face it. Humanity had taken its first step toward courage, and the battle for survival was about to begin. The night air over Wind Rest was cool and crisp. Lanterns glowed softly along the fences, their light reflecting off the reddish soil. The settlement was quiet, but tension hung thick in the air. Every settler moved carefully, aware that the Dread Fang could strike at any moment. Ryan climbed the watchtower for the third time that evening, spear in hand. His eyes scanned the plains, looking for any sign of movement. Tomash, standing beside him, adjusted his grip on a heavy spear. Do you really think we can face it? Tomash asked quietly, his voice carrying both doubt and determination. Ryan shook his head. We do not face it blindly. We act with strategy. We watch, we wait, and we strike together. Alone, we are weak. But together, we are strong. The twin moons reflected off the plains, casting long shadows. Ryan noticed a flicker of movement near the distant trees. He squinted, heart beating faster. The Dread Fang was out there, testing them, watching for signs of weakness. Look there, Ryan whispered, pointing. The creature's glowing amber eyes appeared between the shadows. It crouched low, muscles tense, ready to spring. Ryan felt a thrill of fear and excitement. This was the moment they had prepared for. He signaled to the team below. Lyra, carrying her satchel of supplies, moved silently to a small clearing where traps had been set. Bren adjusted a series of metal spikes hidden under the soil, making sure everything was ready. Tomash and other volunteers took positions along the fence, spears sharp and prepared. The Dread Fang moved with deadly grace, testing the perimeter. It leapt over a small fire, pausing when the flames crackled. Ryan studied it carefully. The creature was intelligent, cautious, and fast. It was not just a wild animal, it was a predator that could think. Ryan signaled for everyone to hold. They would wait until the creature was close enough, and then they would act together. The air was tense, filled with the sound of distant winds and the soft crackle of fire. The Dread Fang approached a trap that Bren had set. The metal spikes were hidden under a thin layer of soil, and the creature did not notice them at first. Ryan's heart raced as he held his spear ready. Suddenly, the Dread Fang leapt, landing directly on the trap. The spikes pierced its paw, and it let out a roar that shook the ground. Flames from the torches reflected in its eyes, and for a moment, it seemed confused and angry. Ryan saw the opening. He signaled Tomash, who moved quickly to block the creature's path. The Dread Fang lunged toward him, but Tomash stood firm, striking it with his spear and forcing it back. Lyra moved closer, holding a small torch. She did not attack, but she used the light to guide the creature away from the village. It hissed and growled, its eyes flicking from shadow to light. The humans were working together, and the Dreadfang was realizing that it was not alone. Bren activated a small mechanism that released a loud noise and a burst of sparks. The Dreadfang stopped, startled. Ryan saw an opportunity and ran forward, spear in hand. He struck the creature's shoulder, forcing it to retreat. The battle was fast and chaotic. The Dreadfang was powerful, but the humans were clever and coordinated. They used fire, light, and carefully planned traps to control its movements. The creature roared, trying to escape, but every path seemed blocked by determined humans. After several tense minutes, the Dreadfang bolted into the darkness, leaving the plains beyond the village. It had not been defeated, but it had been challenged. The humans had survived their first encounter. Ryan and the team gathered near the central square, breathing heavily. Tomash wiped sweat from his brow and nodded. "We did it. We held it off." Lyra tended to a few minor injuries, her hands steady and calm. "We need to learn from this. The Dreadfang is clever. It will try something different next time." Bren examined the traps and weapons. "Our planning worked, but we must improve. We cannot rely on luck. Next time, we must be smarter, faster, and more coordinated." Ryan looked across the plains. The twin moons shone down on the land, and the faint outline of the distant mountains stood like silent guardians. Somewhere out there, the Dreadfang was watching. It would return. But so would they. He turned to the team. "Tonight was only the first test. We have learned its strength and its habits. We know what works and what does not. Next time, we will be ready. This is not just about surviving. This is about proving that humans can face terror with courage and skill." The team nodded, their faces showing determination. They were not trained warriors, but they had something just as powerful: courage, intelligence, and the will to protect their home. As the night deepened, the settlers of Windrest returned to their homes, keeping close to the fires and lanterns. Children slept under blankets, listening to the wind and the distant sounds of the plains. Adults kept watch, tired but alert, knowing that the Dreadfang could return at any moment. Ryan remained on the watchtower for a while longer, his eyes scanning the darkness. He thought about the creature, its strength, and its cunning. He also thought about humanity's history, about the many dangers their ancestors had faced and overcome. If humans could survive harsh climates, predators, and hostile worlds, they could survive this as well. The night passed slowly, and by dawn, the plains were calm again. The Dreadfang had retreated, and the settlement was safe for now. Ryan climbed down from the watchtower, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Myra approached him, her face calm but serious. "You did well tonight, Ryan. You led with courage and wisdom. But remember, this is only the beginning. The Dreadfang will learn from us, and we must learn from it." Ryan nodded. "I understand. We will study it, plan carefully, and be ready. Humans do not give up. We adapt, we fight, and we survive." The elder smiled faintly. "Then perhaps Windrest will endure. Perhaps your courage will inspire the rest of the settlement. Tonight, we have seen that humans are not helpless. We can face terror and still stand strong." Ryan looked out at the plains one last time before heading back into the village. The twin suns rose higher in the sky, bathing the settlement in light. The day ahead would be busy with repairs, preparations, and planning. But the people of Windrest had learned something important: courage, teamwork, and determination were more powerful than fear. And somewhere in the shadows of the distant plains, the Dreadfang waited, knowing that its next encounter with humans would not be easy. The morning sun rose over Windrest, painting the plains with soft gold light. The twin moons faded, leaving only the warmth of the suns to touch the soil and the buildings. The settlement looked peaceful, but tension remained in the air. Everyone remembered the Dreadfang's attack and the lessons of the night before. Ryan stood near the central square, watching as settlers worked together to repair the damage. Fences were mended, traps were checked, and new torches were placed along the perimeter. Tomasz helped lift heavy posts into the fence line, his muscles straining but his spirit firm. Lyra tended to the livestock, making sure the animals were calm and healthy. Bren inspected the mechanisms of the traps again, adjusting small metal spikes and sharpening points to make them more effective. Ryan gathered the hunting team near the council tent. Myra, the eldest, joined them, her eyes sharp with concern. "The Dreadfang is clever," she said. "It will return, and it will try new tactics. We cannot rely on what worked last night. We must think ahead." Ryan nodded. "We have seen its habits. We know its strength and speed. Now we must use strategy and planning. We will divide into groups, watch different areas, and use light and noise to guide it. We will be ready for its next move." The team spread out across the settlement and surrounding plains as the suns climbed higher. They studied every shadow, every line of the land, and every sign of movement. Birds flying, distant rustling, or a broken branch could mean the presence of the Dreadfang. They had learned that paying attention to small details could make a big difference. By late afternoon, the winds shifted and the plains grew quiet. The animals sensed it first. The cows huddled together, the goats bleated nervously, and the dogs barked toward the distant trees. Ryan tightened his grip on his spear. The Dreadfang was near, watching. It had not forgotten the humans and their traps. It was learning, just as they were. The first sign came as a faint sound, almost like a soft growl carried on the wind. Ryan motioned for Tomasz and Bren to follow him silently. They moved carefully along the edge of the plains, hiding behind stones and low bushes. Lyra stayed behind to monitor the livestock and the settlement, ready to assist if anything went wrong. The Dreadfang appeared at the edge of the forest, larger and stronger than ever. Its eyes glowed in the shadows, and its muscles rippled as it moved cautiously. It circled, testing the humans' positions, trying to find a weakness. Ryan felt fear, but he focused on courage. He reminded himself that fear was natural, but courage meant acting despite it. They followed the creature quietly, careful not to make any sudden movements. The Dreadfang paused near a small clearing. It sniffed the air, its glowing eyes scanning for humans. Ryan noticed it hesitated near a line of torches. It had learned to fear fire, just as humans had learned to fear its strength. Ryan signaled to Bren, who activated a small mechanism to release smoke and a bright spark. The Dreadfang jumped back, startled. Ryan and Tomasz moved quickly, creating a barrier between the creature and the settlement. They did not attack recklessly. Instead, they guided it away, using light, noise, and movement to control its path. Suddenly, the Dreadfang stopped. Its head tilted, ears pricked, and its eyes focused on the humans. It did not rush forward. It seemed to be considering them, recognizing that they were different from ordinary prey. Ryan froze, realizing something important. The creature was not mindless. It was intelligent. It could think and make decisions. For the first time, the Dreadfang did not attack. It backed away slowly, keeping its eyes on the humans. It circled once, then disappeared into the distant trees. Ryan exhaled, feeling a mix of relief and wonder. They had not fought with force alone. They had faced the Dreadfang without panicking, showing strategy and courage. When they returned to the settlement, Myra was waiting. "You have seen it, haven't you?" she asked. "It is not just a predator. It is aware. It understands danger and recognizes when it is threatened. You have faced it, and it hesitated. That hesitation is a beginning." Ryan nodded. "Yes. It stopped. It did not attack. It seems to understand that we are not easy to scare." I think it may even respect the human's courage, in a way we cannot fully understand. Tomasz frowned. Respect? A predator respects nothing. It only acts to survive. Ryan shook his head. Maybe. But last night, and tonight, it showed caution. It thought before it acted. It reacted to our planning. It hesitated instead of attacking blindly. That is not just instinct. That is awareness. Lyra, who had been quietly observing, spoke softly. If it can think, maybe we can find a way to communicate, at least a little. Not with words, but with actions. With understanding. Bran looked at the traps and mechanisms. We can use what we have learned. We can prepare better defenses, and maybe even guide it without hurting it. We do not need to destroy it. We only need to survive and protect the settlement. Ryan felt a new determination growing. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy. Other worlds, creatures, and forces might see them as weak or fragile. But humans had something unique. Courage, intelligence, creativity, and the ability to face danger without giving up. That was their greatest strength. The sun set slowly over Windrest, and the twin moons rose again, casting a silver glow over the plains. Fires and lanterns lit the settlement, creating a barrier of warmth and light. The Dreadfang remained out there, somewhere in the darkness. But now, it was different. The humans had faced it without fear. They had shown that they could act with skill and courage. Ryan gathered the hunting team near the council tent. Tonight has taught us something important. The Dreadfang is powerful, but it is not unbeatable. It is clever, but we are clever too. We must continue to study it, plan together, and act as one. Humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we are determined and brave. Myra smiled faintly. You speak wisely, Ryan. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in the presence of fear. You and your team have shown that tonight. Windrest has learned that humans can face terror and endure. Ryan looked out over the plains, his mind focused on the future. The Dreadfang was out there, watching, learning, and waiting. But so were they. They would prepare, adapt, and face it again. The first meeting had been without death or destruction. The next encounter would test them further, but Ryan knew they were ready. Night fell fully over Windrest. The fires burned brightly, torches flickered in the wind, and the settlement rested under the watchful eyes of its people. Somewhere in the distant plains, the Dreadfang moved silently, aware of the humans' courage and intelligence. For the first time, both predator and humans understood each other, in a way that went beyond fear. The Dreadfang had hesitated. Humans had endured. And in that quiet understanding, the first true step toward survival and respect had been taken. Ryan clenched his fists and looked at his team. We will not run. We will not hide. We will face what comes with courage, and we will endure. Humans always do. And somewhere in the shadows, the Dreadfang paused, watching, waiting, and perhaps learning that humans were not ordinary prey. The morning sun rose over Windrest, casting long shadows across the plains. The twin moons had faded completely, leaving the settlement bathed in warm light. After the first encounters with the Dreadfang, the village felt different. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with a new determination. Humans could survive this. Humans could fight back. Ryan walked across the central square, observing the team and the villagers. Tomasz was helping repair a fence, his hands calloused and strong. Lyra moved quietly among the livestock, ensuring that every animal was safe and calm. Bran was tinkering with a new trap, adjusting metal spikes and ropes to create a mechanism that could guide the Dreadfang without hurting it. Ryan gathered the team near the council tent. We have faced the Dreadfang, he said, and we have learned much. It is clever, powerful, and cautious. But even the strongest creature has weaknesses. We need to find them and use them to protect our settlement. The team huddled close, listening carefully. Tomasz frowned. What weakness can such a monster have? It moves faster than we do and strikes harder than we can defend. Ryan shook his head. Not everything is about strength. Sometimes, it is about what the creature fears or avoids. We have seen it hesitate near fire. We have seen it react to sudden light and noise. These are small weaknesses, but they are enough if we use them wisely. Lyra added quietly, we need to understand it, not just attack. If we study its movements, we can predict where it will go. We can set traps and guide it without putting ourselves in danger unnecessarily. Bran nodded. I can make more devices, more mechanisms. We can use fire, noise, and clever traps together. We do not need to fight it with brute force. We fight it with intelligence. Ryan smiled faintly. Exactly. Humans survive because we can think, adapt, and work together. The Dreadfang is strong, but it cannot match our strategy. We need to prepare carefully and act as one. Tonight, we will see if our plan works. As the sun set, the settlement prepared for the hunt. Fires were lit along the fences, lanterns were placed in watchtowers, and traps were checked. Volunteers moved with purpose, knowing that every detail mattered. This night would not be about luck. It would be about planning, courage, and teamwork. Ryan and Tomasz took positions at the northern edge of the village, where the plains met the low hills. They crouched behind stones, watching the distant trees. The air was cool, and the wind carried the faint scent of dry grass. Every sound was magnified: the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an animal, the movement of insects. Lyra and Bran took positions closer to the settlement. Lyra carried a torch and a small bag of supplies. Bran held a mechanism that could release sparks and noise to guide the creature away from the village. Both waited quietly, watching for any sign of movement. Hours passed, and the twin moons rose again, casting silver light across the plains. Then, in the shadows near the trees, a flicker of movement caught Ryan's eye. The Dreadfang had returned. Its glowing amber eyes scanned the land, muscles tense and ready. It was cautious, as always, but it was hunting. Ryan signaled to the team. They moved silently into position, ready to act. The Dreadfang approached a trap set by Bran, which released a small burst of sparks and noise. The creature jumped back, startled, its eyes flicking between the trap and the humans. Ryan noticed something new. The Dreadfang's movements were sharper, more deliberate. It seemed to be learning from the humans' actions. But the humans had learned too. They had studied the creature, noticed patterns, and prepared a plan. The first step was to guide the Dreadfang along a narrow path that led away from the village. Fires and torches were used to create a barrier, while Bran's devices released noise to keep the creature on the path. Ryan and Tomasz moved carefully, keeping the Dreadfang between them and the village. The creature tested the human's strategy, pausing and hesitating. It growled softly, its eyes scanning for openings. Ryan felt a thrill of fear and excitement. The Dreadfang was strong and clever, but the humans were showing something it had never faced before: teamwork, courage, and intelligence. As they guided the creature along the path, Ryan noticed a weak spot in its behavior. It seemed hesitant when its movements were restricted. It avoided narrow spaces where it could not turn easily. This was the opening they needed. Ryan signaled Tomasz, who quickly positioned a series of traps along the narrow path. The Dreadfang approached cautiously, and when it stepped into the confined space, its movements were limited. Ryan moved forward, spear in hand, ready to act if necessary. Bran triggered a device that released a bright spark, startling the creature further. It roared, its voice echoing across the plains, but it could not escape the traps and the humans' careful guidance. The Dreadfang struggled but did not attack recklessly. It was aware of the humans and their strategy. Lyra moved closer, torch held high. She guided the creature with light, showing it the path without using violence. The Dreadfang hesitated, then followed the direction humans provided. For the first time, it seemed to understand that the humans were not just prey, but beings with courage and strategy. The team worked together, each member using their skill. Tomash blocked the creature's path, Ryan guided it with spears and movement, Bren activated devices, and Lyra used light. The Dreadfang tried to break free, but every escape route was anticipated. Finally, the creature reached a wide clearing, where it paused and looked at the humans. Its glowing eyes met Ryan's, and for a moment, there was no attack, no fear, only understanding. The Dreadfang was intelligent, but it was also learning. It could feel the humans' courage and determination. Ryan lowered his spear slightly. "We are not here to destroy you," he whispered. "We are here to survive. We face danger, but we do not act without purpose. You are strong, but humans are clever and brave." The Dreadfang roared softly, then slowly retreated into the shadows of the distant trees. It had not been defeated, but it had been challenged. The humans had learned its patterns, discovered its weaknesses, and survived with courage and intelligence. The team returned to the village, tired but proud. Myra greeted them. "You have learned much tonight. Humans face danger and endure. You have studied, planned, and acted with courage. That is our greatest strength." Ryan nodded. "The Dreadfang is powerful, but it is not unbeatable. We have weaknesses too, but together, we can face terror and survive. Humans do not give up. We adapt, we plan, and we endure." As the night ended, the settlers of Windrest felt a new sense of hope. They had faced fear, studied it, and found a way to survive. The plains were still dangerous, but humanity's courage shone brighter than the shadows. And somewhere in the distant trees, the Dreadfang waited, aware that humans were not ordinary prey. It had learned that courage and intelligence could match strength and speed. It had learned that humans would face terror and endure. Night fell over Windrest, and the twin moons cast silver light across the plains. The village was quiet, but tension hung in the air. Fires burned along the fences, torches flickered in the watchtowers, and the livestock huddled together, aware of the dangers beyond the settlement. The Dreadfang had returned, and the humans were ready. Ryan stood on the watchtower, spear in hand, scanning the distant plains. Tomash crouched nearby, gripping his heavy spear tightly. Lyra moved silently along the fence line, torch in hand, while Bran checked the last of the traps and devices. The village had prepared carefully, combining strategy, courage, and teamwork. Tonight would be the decisive encounter. Ryan's eyes caught movement near the distant trees. The Dreadfang appeared, larger and stronger than ever. Its amber eyes glowed, muscles tensed, and its body moved with silent grace. It had grown cautious, learning from the previous encounters, but it had not forgotten its hunger. "Everyone in position," Ryan whispered. "We act together. Follow the plan. Stay calm and alert." The team moved silently into their positions. Tomash and Ryan blocked the northern and southern edges of the approach path. Bran's devices were ready to release sparks and noise, and Lyra's torches formed a corridor of light. The Dreadfang circled, testing the humans' defenses, growling softly. Ryan signaled Tomash. They stepped forward, guiding the creature along the narrow path lined with fire and light. The Dreadfang growled and tested the boundaries, but the humans anticipated every movement. It was clever, but so were they. Bren activated his first device. A burst of sparks flew into the air, startling the Dreadfang. It leapt back, then turned to face the humans. Its eyes glowed brighter, muscles rippling as it prepared to strike. Ryan took a deep breath and held his spear ready. The creature lunged toward Tomash, but Tomash met it with steady strength, blocking the path and forcing it to change direction. The Dreadfang snarled, its powerful jaws snapping, but it did not charge recklessly. It tested the human's strategy, realizing that each movement was anticipated. Lyra moved along the torches, guiding the Dreadfang with light. It hesitated when it approached the fires, sensing danger. Ryan noticed its pattern. It avoided narrow spaces, reacted to fire and noise, and did not act blindly. The humans could use this to their advantage. The plan was simple but risky. They would guide the Dreadfang into a narrow canyon beyond the village, where traps, fire, and light would restrict its movements. Once there, they would act together to stop it. Ryan signaled the team. The creature followed the path, growling and testing each barrier. Sparks from Bren's devices burst into the air, fires from the torches created walls of light, and Ryan and Tomash guided it with careful movements. The Dreadfang hesitated, then moved cautiously into the canyon. Once inside, its movements were limited. The walls of the canyon prevented it from turning easily, and the human's preparation forced it into a confined space. Ryan felt a surge of determination. This was the moment they had prepared for. The Dreadfang roared, testing its strength, but it could not escape. Tomash held firm, Ryan advanced with spear ready, and Lyra used light to guide it. Bren triggered his final device, creating a loud noise that startled the creature further. It struggled, but the humans acted together, moving as one. Ryan lunged carefully, striking the creature's shoulder with the spear. The Dreadfang roared again, thrashing, but it could not break free. The humans were not attacking recklessly. They used strategy, patience, and courage. Each movement was precise, each action calculated. For several tense minutes, the battle continued. The Dreadfang tried to escape, but every route was blocked or guided by fire, light, and traps. Ryan and Tomash kept it focused, while Lyra and Bren controlled its movements. The creature was powerful, but it could not match the humans' unity and intelligence. Finally, the Dreadfang paused, breathing heavily, its glowing eyes flicking between the humans. It seemed to understand that it could not win this fight. It roared one last time, a deep, resonant sound, then retreated into the shadows of the distant plains. It had not been destroyed, but it had been stopped. Ryan lowered his spear, chest heaving. Tomash exhaled, gripping his weapon tightly. Lyra and Bren looked at each other, relief in their eyes. They had survived the final hunt. The village had been protected, and the Dreadfang had been forced to retreat. Myra approached, her face calm but proud. "You have done what few thought possible. You faced danger, planned carefully, and acted with courage. Humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we are determined, intelligent, and brave." Ryan nodded. "It is not about destroying the Dreadfang. It is about surviving, learning, and protecting our home. We have shown that courage and strategy can overcome strength and terror." Tomash smiled faintly. "We have learned much tonight. The Dreadfang is powerful, but it is not unbeatable. We can face it and endure, together." Lyra added softly, "We also learned respect. It is strong and clever, but so are we. We can survive without destroying everything in our path. Humans endure because we understand both danger and caution." The settlement slowly settled back into calm. Fires burned along the fences, torches flickered in the wind, and the livestock rested peacefully. The plains were quiet, but the humans knew the Dreadfang was still out there, watching and learning. Ryan climbed the watchtower one last time that night, looking over the plains and the village. The twin moons shone brightly, casting silver light over the land. Somewhere in the distance, the Dreadfang moved silently, aware that humans were not ordinary prey. It had learned that courage, intelligence, and teamwork could match strength and speed. Ryan felt a surge of pride and hope. The humans of Windrest had faced terror, acted with courage, and survived. They had not only protected their homes but also proven that humans were capable of facing challenges that seemed impossible. Myra joined him on the watchtower. You have shown leadership, courage, and wisdom, Ryan. The settlement will remember this night. Humans face danger and endure. That is our greatest strength. Ryan looked down at the village, lit by firelight and moonlight. We will continue to protect our home. We will adapt and plan. Humans always survive. We face fear and act with courage, and that makes us strong. The night passed quietly. The Dreadfang had retreated, the village was safe, and the humans had endured. Tomorrow, they would repair, plan, and prepare for the future. They had faced terror and proven that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the greatest danger. And somewhere in the distant plains, the Dreadfang moved silently, learning that humans were not easy prey. It had been challenged, and it had learned respect. Humans had survived, and that was a lesson no predator could ignore. The first light of dawn spread slowly across Wind Rest, painting the plains with soft orange and gold. The twin moons had faded, leaving only the warm glow of the suns. The settlement was quiet, but a sense of pride and hope hung in the air. Last night had been the first true victory over the Dreadfang. Humans had faced terror and survived, and the feeling of courage lingered in every heart. Ryan stood in the central square, looking at the village. Children ran along the paths, their laughter bright and light. Adults moved with purpose, repairing fences, checking traps, and tending to livestock. Tomasz carried a heavy post, placing it carefully in the new fence line. Lyra moved among the animals, ensuring that they were healthy and calm. Bren was adjusting mechanisms and checking devices that would keep the village safe in the future. Ryan turned to Myra, who had been watching the village carefully. We did it, he said quietly. The Dreadfang is still out there, but we held it back. We survived together. Myra nodded. Yes, Ryan. You and your team have shown the settlement what humans are capable of. Courage, intelligence, and unity can overcome fear and danger. Windrest will remember this day. The villagers began gathering in the central square, forming a circle around the team. Faces were tired but bright with pride. Many had prepared for disaster, but the humans of Windrest had faced it and endured. They had proven that fear could be met with courage, and danger could be met with strategy. Ryan stepped forward. Last night, we faced a great danger. The Dreadfang is powerful, strong, and clever. But we learned something important. Humans survive because we do not give up. We adapt. We plan. We act together. That is how we protect our homes, our families, and our future. Tomasz added, we faced fear, but we did not run. We faced it with our minds and our hearts. That is what makes us strong. Not strength alone, but courage and teamwork. Lyra smiled softly. We also learned respect. The Dreadfang is clever, and it has strength we cannot match. But we learned to act without destroying. We guided it, studied it, and survived. Humans endure because we think, we plan, and we respect life. Bran spoke next. We have traps, devices, and torches to protect the village. But those are only tools. The greatest strength is our courage, our unity, and our determination. The Dreadfang will return, but we will be ready. The settlers listened carefully, inspired by the words. Fear had not disappeared, but it had been replaced with hope and pride. The humans of Windrest had faced terror, and they had endured. They had shown that even against the strongest predator, courage and intelligence could prevail. Ryan looked out toward the plains. Somewhere beyond the distant hills, the Dreadfang moved silently. Its amber eyes glowed faintly, and its muscles rippled beneath dark fur. It had learned from the humans' actions, just as the humans had learned from it. For the first time, predator and humans understood each other in a way that went beyond fear. Myra placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. You have led them well. Humans have faced the unknown before, and they will face it again. But courage is not just about surviving one night. It is about facing every challenge, every danger, and never giving up. That is what humans do. Ryan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility and hope. We will continue to protect the village. We will repair, prepare, and plan for the future. Humans endure because we face fear, adapt, and act with courage. That is our strength. As the suns rose higher, the settlement became busier. The villagers repaired fences completely, reinforced doors, and rebuilt damaged pens. Children played safely under the watchful eyes of their parents. Every person moved with purpose, proud of what they had achieved and determined to keep it safe. Later, the hunting team gathered at the edge of the plains to review the events of the night. Ryan pointed to the narrow canyon where the final encounter had taken place. "This is where we found our strength," he said. "We used strategy, courage, and unity. The Dreadfang tested us, but we learned its weaknesses without destroying it. That is how humans survive." Tomash nodded. "We saw fear, but we acted beyond it. We protected our village, our families, and each other. That is more than strength. That is humanity." Lero looked at the distant trees. "The Dreadfang will return, but we have learned how to face it. We have learned that humans can endure, adapt, and survive. We do not need to be the strongest to win. We need to be clever, brave, and united." Bran smiled and adjusted one of his devices. "Next time, we will be even more prepared. We have learned from this night, and we will use every lesson. Humans endure because we do not stop. That is what makes us different." As the day passed, the settlers of Windrest worked together. The village was stronger, safer, and more organized than ever before. Everyone knew the Dreadfang might return, but they were ready. Courage had been tested and proven. Teamwork had saved lives. Humanity had endured against terror. In the evening, Ryan climbed the watchtower once more. The twin moons rose slowly, casting silver light over the plains. He scanned the horizon, seeing only the peaceful landscape. Somewhere in the distance, the Dreadfang moved silently, aware that humans were not easy prey. It had been challenged and had learned respect. Ryan felt a sense of pride and hope. Humans had faced terror, survived, and protected their homes. They had shown that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the greatest danger. The Dreadfang was strong, but humans had something it could not match: determination, planning, and bravery. Myra joined him on the tower. "You have shown leadership, courage, and wisdom, Ryan. The settlement will remember this day. Humans face danger and endure. That is our greatest strength." Ryan looked down at the village, lit by firelight and moonlight. "We will continue to protect our home. We will prepare, adapt, and act with courage. Humans always survive. That is what makes us strong." The night passed quietly. Fires burned along the fences, torches flickered in the wind, and the village rested under the watchful eyes of its people. Somewhere in the distant plains, the Dreadfang moved silently, learning that humans were clever, brave, and united. The next morning, the settlement celebrated. The villagers repaired everything that had been damaged, strengthened their defenses, and shared stories of courage and teamwork. Children listened with wide eyes, inspired by the bravery of Ryan and his team. Adults smiled, proud of what they had accomplished. Ryan looked across the plains one last time. The Dreadfang had not been destroyed, but it had been stopped. Humans had endured. They had proven that courage, intelligence, and teamwork could face even the greatest terror. And so, a new dawn rose over Windrest. Humans had faced fear, acted with courage, and survived. The plains were still dangerous, but humanity's spirit shone brighter than the shadows. They had faced terror and endured, and that would always be their greatest strength.